welcome to another episode of Just My Baby Podcast. And today we have a very special guest. I can say very special in a lot of ways because everyone that knows me knows I'm big on I'm big on Epsilon Beta as far as Kappa Alpha Psi,
Sure.
but there's no way I would have been a Kappa if it wasn't for my guest today, because if at any moment he would have decided to say, you know what, fuck this shit, I'm done. I'm tired of being online. I can't take it no more. We've done this for way too long. I would have quit. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. If he would have said, I'm done, I would have quit, and I wouldn't be where I am today. So our guest today is my brother, Mr. Paul Myers. Appreciate you being on here today.
Yeah, thank you for having me, man. Always happy to jump on anything that you got going on.
And so, for those who are not watching visual podcasts and just listening to it, they might not know this is my first white guest.
Yeah.
We got it. And because it is a perfect talk, I can't think of nobody else that I would want to have on when I want to talk about what it's like to actually raise a interracial child. And I could think about, again, a black dad with a white mom. But I said, well, there's no point for me to go anywhere first than go with my brother first, who's a white brother with a black mom. And so first question I want to ask you is, when you just found out you were having a baby, was this shock in the family? Was anybody like looking at anything different? Like, oh my God, I know you and your child's mother have been together for a long time beforehand, but still, it's the whole thing of bringing somebody else, a different DNA into the family. What was that like?
Yeah, so fortunately I didn't have that concern in my family, right? Like my family's pretty cool as far as interracial things. No issue with any other races or anything. I'm blessed in that regard. I didn't have to have any tough conversations, because that's what it would have been, right? Is hey, this is happening. You got to get on board, or that's it. Really, you're just not going to be a part of her life if you're not on board. And I was okay with that. But here's the thing. Like I said, I didn't have to go through that. I didn't have to worry about that. My family was very supportive. My dad knew my daughter's mom for a while. Like you said, we had been together for a while. And I think that made it easier, right? It wasn't just that I'm having a child with a woman I barely knew or anything. She had been around my family, so it made it easier for sure.
All right. So even in the beginning, was there nobody that was any backlash or anything like that, right?
No, I didn't have that situation, but I'm sure it exists. I've definitely heard from other people, and unfortunately, it's normally when the father's black, right? That's when it seems to be more of a tumultuous thing amongst family members for some reason, right? And so I've heard of situations where that's happened, and what ends up happening usually, not always, is that the family comes around or at least tolerates the father, and
Yeah,
they
you know what?
love the child.
That is interesting, because that is a totally different dynamic when it's a black dad and you have to go into a white. So, well, her family was accepting right away, or it was nothing, right? Or was it for
Her
you?
family accepted me.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, they treat me like a member of the family still, even though her and I are not together. So I have been very fortunate. I haven't had to run up against these situations, and I think ultimately it comes down to like education and communication, right? If there is a problem, you first have to have a conversation, and then educate them on who this person is, why they're important to you, what it's going to mean going forward, right? Because now you have a biracial child that will be coming into play. So you have to educate them like, hey, I know that this is uncomfortable for you, but it's something that you should educate yourself on. And a lot of it comes from exposure, right? You have a lot of any race, black, white, Latino, Asian. A lot of them don't have a ton of exposure with other races. Like it's family, friends. You're raised in white household with white friends, white family. You're raised in a black household. It's mostly black friends, black family. And so the exposure comes when you actually try. You have to make effort. And I think that's where the conversation starts with family members that aren't as accepting as mine was. You have to push them to be uncomfortable. If you if you're not gonna make yourself uncomfortable when it comes to other races, you're never gonna evolve. It's just not gonna progress.
Right. And for transparent, your situation is also different because we're thinking about it because you went to HBCU. So of course
Yeah,
you're gonna
yeah.
feel life. Of course you're gonna embrace everything. But you didn't grow up biracial, but your daughter
No,
is, right?
yes,
So you're
correct.
talking about education. So you've never experienced that. So what type of things has she been going through that she asked you that you said, well, I can't relate, I can't speak on? Has there been anything like that?
Well, yeah. So, when she was younger, I guess she had a question posed in school, like, or assumed that she was black, right? And so she asked when she was younger, "Hey, am I black or am I white?" And we had to have a conversation with her, like, "Hey, you're both. Like, you can proudly claim both. Even though her skin is less fair, right? Like, she has a more melanin in her skin tone than some mixed children do. Some mixed children are a little lighter. She's a little darker. So I think ultimately people assume that she's more black than white, but she's full mix, and we had to explain to her, be prideful that you are both, and embrace it.
So to that point, right? Now let's get back to she's a baby, she's little, and she looks like a black baby. Let's just
Yeah,
let's just let's just be real. She looks like a black baby. And you don't look like a black dad. You're not like you don't look like you might be mixed. You don't look like none of that. You look like
no,
so what was it like originally walking around and things like that? We talk about the family being embraced and all of that, but what was it like just in public and things like that? How did you deal with that?
yeah. Funny enough, I got more weird looks from older black women than anybody. They kind of look for a second, like, is that his baby, or like, why is he got her? But never any words mixed or anything. I think a lot of it comes in with the care that you show the child. If you're treating the child like it's your child, then people have less questions.
Yeah. Because I was thinking about it because I have of course we have friends that are I got black dads that have friends with white women and they talk about the looks that they get, especially when their child is lighter, right? They get
Of
looked at
course, I'm
they
sure
get looked at a certain type of way, but I didn't know if the same thing happened in reverse. Like
it
anybody
did.
look it did?
Yeah, I definitely got looks. Like I said, it was more of a concerned look sometimes, almost. Is she supposed to be with him? Like, I'm not sure that's her dad, or whatever they were thinking. But yeah, you get some concerned looks, like, I'm not sure that's right. So it happens, man. You just, if you see it, shrug it off. It's not that big of a deal, man. Ultimately,
Let me ask you this. Does your daughter because I don't know, and I never talked to you about this, right? So your daughter identifies as both. Does she have like what is the white plight like? You know what I mean? Like the white struggle. Does she talk about that? Because because I know what the black struggle is. Like I can relate to the black struggle. She had, and she will. If you look at her, think she would have the black struggle. But so what is that? When she says she can identify as both, how does that work? Because she can identify it as both, but when you go out there, yeah, it's that little black girl. Like that's So
yeah.
how do you teach her to balance both, or how do that go?
Well, it's not. Again, it comes down to educating, right? It's this our country. I can't speak for other countries. Our country, there's a huge lack of education when it comes to race. It's people are just very closed minded. So if I haven't had a situation where I've had to, like, explain to her, hey, in this situation, educate that person, let them know that you are black and white. And I mean, I believe that that's what she does, right? If someone asks, she's like, no, I'm mixed, I'm black and white. But there hasn't been a situation where she's had to assert her white side at all, right? Like, or assert that she is half white. She hasn't had that situation that I know of.
Yeah, yes, because I was wondering, like, if do you have the teacher that fit into what groups, or does she have that type? She ever comes to you with that type of struggle? Like, I don't know, like my black friends don't. I feel like I'm not black enough. My white friends don't look at me like I'm white at all. Like, has there been any of those type of conversations?
She hasn't run into that yet that I know of, fortunately. So the area that I live in is pretty diverse, but I'd say I mean, I'm in Florida, so it's a heavy Latin population, right? So I think ultimately that's more of her experience has been with like other children that kind of look like her, right? Because a lot of mixed kids, look a little Hispanic or Latino. So I think she mainly identifies with them just from a manner of, my hair is similar to theirs, my skin tone is similar to theirs. So I think she is comfortable, where she is. She doesn't have any issues with race that I know of at her school, which is great.
You're in Florida, and that's not something that you would think you would hear when you think of Florida.
Well, yeah. So I think that's that gets misconstrued, because the main areas of Florida that people know of, Orlando, Jacksonville, Tampa, Miami, right? Those that's not where you're getting all this crazy Florida man racist stuff. It's the more rural areas outside of the cities and such. So I do think Florida gets a bad rep just from some of the craziness that's on the internet. But it's the areas that I've been exposed to here, and I've been across Florida quite a bit. It's racism isn't a big deal.
Mm. So she's never come
Again,
to.
again, we don't spend a lot of times in these backwoods rural areas like that, but they definitely exist, and again, here comes the white side of me, or the white privilege of me, is that I'm not exposed to it that much because I am white, right? You would be
Right,
exposed to it more than I would for sure. And
right.
um nothing she's advised me of indicates that she's been exposed to that.
So that's interesting. And I wonder, do you think if she would, will she come to you or will she go to her mom?
Both. Yeah,
Both.
she's very vocal with her concerns. It's a lot of it now is just general high school stuff, right? Like he said, she said, they did, type stuff, and none of it has been race related. Thankfully, there's been small little things when she was younger, but nothing since she's been, I think, middle school on. I think there was probably a comment or two when she was in elementary. But those kids don't understand the world yet. Even middle school and high school don't fully understand the world, but they have a better grasp. Elementary, they just say things that they've heard their parents say or other people say.
Oh, so she has had incidents at elementary school then.
Yeah, I don't recall the specifics of it, but yeah, she did have something race related when she was younger.
And how was that handled?
Well, yeah, that's I think that's where that conversation came in, is am I black or white, or what exactly, what do I claim? We, like I said, we told her you're both, like you can proudly claim both.
Okay, because I remember the only race thing I remember with my kids was what was they called? A black monkey, but some
Sure.
and it's like fuck, and they called this by I don't want to sound racist, but they called it by some Spanish kids. I'm like, man, like fuck, like
Yeah.
it's supposed to be here, motherfucker. Like, wait, but it's okay. But you acknowledge the fact that you feel like it would have been different if the roles were reversed. If you were a black dad and it would have been a white mom. That's interesting.
Think it could have been for sure. Yeah, I mean, I think it goes without saying that black men are probably the most scrutinized demographic in our country, right? I mean,
Yeah.
just generally speaking, look at I mean, just the Kendrick Lamar performance itself is indicative of race relations towards black men in this country. It's ridiculous. Beyonce's more embraced. Kendrick is more looked at differently, right, for his performance. So yeah, I absolutely believe it would be different if the roles were reversed.
Yeah, I do too. I do too. So let me ask you one more, just getting out of here. If let's say someone is to start an interracial relationship and they have a baby on the way, what advice would you give them as far as the steps moving forward?
Yeah, it goes back to what I was saying, is that child is now going to be multi-race, right? Like it's not a black or white thing, it's black and white thing. And I think that's one of the key things to make sure that you inform your child about. Let them embrace both sides of the family equally. Try your best to encourage them to do so, because it's kind of a blessing, right? Like I know some mixed people would probably say, nah, it's a bit of a curse, right? Because you don't get to fully embrace the white side because of your skin tone, right? The one drop rule, you can't fully embrace the white side. But I would encourage you to do your best to push that, because, it is important. Being multi-race is I'd say a gift, right? It's best of both worlds. I think there's a lot to be learned from both sides. Ultimately, it's something that can help push race relations in the country forward, more education.
Yeah, I think this conversation will be really interesting coming from different views too. Because
Absolutely.
I'm
Yeah.
definitely want to have a black, but I also wouldn't have what somebody biracial had to say about this. Because I can't, I
Yeah.
mean, I can't speak on it.
Nor can I, right? Like
Right.
even though my daughter's mixed, I can't speak to how she feels being a mixed child in this country. So,
Right.
it would be it'd be a nice touch to kind of get perspectives from different directions on this.
Yeah, because I was like, embrace both sides, but it's like this. I can understand this. A lot of black people will embrace, but if I'm a darker mixed person, I wonder how easy it is for me to be embraced in those rural areas of Florida.
Well,
But
I
and
think
that,
that's accurate, right? I don't think that it's, again, I can only speak from my experience.
yeah,
My experience is I don't experience much racism down here in Florida. Even when I'm with black friends, right?
yeah,
I don't come across situations where it was, where I was like, damn, that's racist. I don't come across that very often.
yeah,
Have I seen it or heard it? I'm sure I have, but I'm one of those people that's quick to jump in and say, "Hey,
yeah, yeah,
you don't speak to people that way."
yeah. I know. If you was 70s, what they would say you was on outside the Freedom Rider or what?
Yeah, yeah, I don't. Yeah, it's I have a
Yeah,
hard time with that. I
yeah,
don't like racism in any regard.
yeah. We know. But yeah, this is interesting. I really want to have all these conversations with all different sides too. But I appreciate you. I appreciate. I think it
Yeah,
can
of
go a long
course.
way. It can help some people too.
Yeah, I think so. Again, man, it's about making people uncomfortable. They're not gonna fully be able to understand or embrace the differences we have unless they get uncomfortable first. They're going to have to get uncomfortable, have uncomfortable conversations. Once they're able to do that, and then they can start understanding things from a different perspective, that's when I think race relations improve.
I agree. I totally agree. I appreciate it.
Of course.
Episode of Just My Baby Daddy podcast. I know you liked what you saw. So what I need for you to do is go back and look at past episodes. Make sure you like, subscribe, and share our YouTube page, Just My Baby Daddy Podcast. And you can follow us on all social media at Just My Baby Daddy Pod.